The Valderan war fleet surrounded the small human ship like wolves circling a lamb. Commander Huck watched the display screens in his command center with satisfaction. The human vessel was tiny compared to his warships, barely larger than a cargo transport. Its hull was thin and fragile-looking. The crew inside numbered only 43 souls. "They call this a research ship," Hugh said to his officers. "Look at it, no heavy weapons, minimal shields. These creatures dare to travel through space in such a pathetic vessel." The Valderan had conquered 43 worlds across the galaxy. They were strong, their technology advanced, their military unmatched by any species they had encountered. When they found new civilizations, those civilizations either joined the collective willingly or were absorbed by force. It was simple. It was efficient. It had worked for 300 years. Captain Dabin sat in his chair aboard the research vessel Horizons. Edgen tried to keep his voice calm. The Valderan had appeared without warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel with weapons already charged. His ship had been conducting surveys of an unexplored nebula when the aliens arrived. "This is Captain Dabin of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge," he transmitted. "We are a peaceful research mission. We mean no harm to you or your territory. Please respond." The Valderan response came quickly. "Human vessel, you will surrender your ship immediately. You will transfer all data regarding your homeworld, your military capabilities, and your navigation charts. You will submit to Valderan authority." Dabin looked at his crew. Scientist Murray was at her station, her fingers hovering over her console. Engineer Soman sat at the engine controls, ready to push their small ship to maximum speed if needed. They all knew they couldn't outrun the Valderan warships. They all knew their weapons were designed for clearing space debris, not fighting military vessels. "We cannot surrender our ship," Dabin replied carefully. "We represent Earth and its people. We offer friendship in exchange of knowledge. We ask only to be allowed to continue our peaceful mission." In the Valderan command ship, Huck's expression hardened. Did this human just refuse my order? He turned to his tactical officer. "Do they not understand their position?" "Sir, their ship is defenseless. Perhaps they are ignorant of military protocols. Then we will educate them." Hugh opened the communication channel again. "Human captain, you have 1 of your minutes to comply. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to those who defy the Valderan collective." Murray stood up from her station. "Captain, let me try." Dabin nodded, and she activated her console. "Valderan Commander, I am sending you historical data from Earth. Please review it before taking action. Our species has a long history of warfare. We have developed weapons that can destroy entire cities in seconds. We have fought wars that killed millions of our own people. We are trying to be better than our past, but that past has made us very good at one thing: surviving threats. Please, there is no need for conflict here." The Valderan officers reviewed the data Murray sent. They saw images of human weapons, primitive nuclear bombs, chemical warfare, biological agents. They saw footage of human soldiers fighting in ancient wars. The Valderan laughed. "Look at their technology," one officer said. "Those nuclear weapons are crude. Our shields would absorb such blasts easily, and their soldiers," another added. "They are so small, so weak. Our warriors are twice their size and 3 times as strong." Hugh dismissed the data. "The human female tries to frighten us with history lessons. She does not understand that we have destroyed species far more advanced than hers." He checked the time. The minute has passed. "Weapons officer, target their engine section. 1 shot. Let us show them what real power looks like." Dabin saw the energy spike on his sensors. "All crew, brace for impact." The Valderan beam weapon struck the Horizon's Edge with devastating force. The ship's small shield lasted less than a second before collapsing. The beam tore through the hull, ripping into the engine compartment. Explosions rippled through 3 decks. Atmosphere began venting into space. "Abandoned ship." Dabin shouted over the alarms. "All crew to escape pods. Now." Somin ran through the damaged corridors, helping injured crew members toward the escape pods. The ship was dying around them. Fires burned in sections where the beam had penetrated. The artificial gravity flickered on and off. She reached Escape Pod Bay 3 and found 4 crew members already inside. "Get in." "The ship's breaking apart." Somin jumped into the pod and slammed her fist on the launch button. The pod ejected just as another explosion tore through the horizon's edge. Through the small window, she watched her ship, her home for the past 2 years, tear itself apart in silent fury. 3 escape pods made it away from the dying vessel. The rest were destroyed in the explosions or damaged beyond use. 43 crew members had been aboard the horizon's edge. Only 11 survived. Hugh watched the human ship disintegrate. Broadcast this across all known communication channels. Let every species see what happens when they refuse the Valdaran Collective. Let the humans on Earth see what their defiance has earned them. The Valdaran transmitted the footage across the galaxy. They showed the small research vessel being destroyed. They showed the escape pods drifting in space. They added their own message. The Valdaran Collective has eliminated a human vessel that trespassed in our territory. We demand that Earth submit to our authority immediately. You have 7 days to respond with your unconditional surrender. Refuse, and we will bring our fleet to your homeworld. Summon's escape pod drifted for 6 hours before its automated systems found a functioning distress beacon floating in the debris field. With the last of her strength, she programmed it to send a message back to Earth. Her hands shook as she typed. This is Engineer Soman of the Horizon's Edge. We were attacked without provocation by aliens, calling themselves the Valdaran Collective. They destroyed our ship. Most of the crew is dead. They have demanded Earth's surrender. Do not trust them. Do not negotiate with them. They see us as inferior. They think we are weak. She paused, thinking of her friends who had died in the explosions. She thought of Captain Dabin, who had tried so hard to find a peaceful solution. She thought of Myray, who had tried to warn them with truth. They have made a terrible mistake, Solomon added to her message. They think they know what humans are capable of. They have no idea. They looked at our past and called it primitive. They are about to learn why humanity survived that past. Tell Earth, do not let them get away with this. Do not let our deaths be meaningless. She sent the message and then collapsed in her seat, exhausted and injured. The pod's medical systems activated, treating her wounds and placing her in suspended animation for the long drift back to human space in the Valdaran command ship. Hugh celebrated with his officers. They had sent a clear message to the galaxy. The humans would surely surrender now. What choice did they have? Their research vessel had been destroyed in seconds. They would understand their place in the galactic order. Begin preparations for the occupation fleet, Hugh ordered.
Once
Earth surrenders, we will need ships to enforce our authority over their system. The Valdaran did not know they had just started a war they could not win. They did not know that killing 43 human civilians would bring consequences beyond their imagination. They had looked at humanity and seen weakness. They were about to learn what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness and compassion for cowardice. They were about to discover why, across all of human history, the worst words any enemy could hear were these: "You just made this personal." Earth received Summon's message 3 days later. The response from humanity would not be what the Valdaran expected. It would not be surrender. It would not be negotiation. It would be something the Valdaran Collective had never faced in 300 years of conquest. It would be war, fought by a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other and had only recently decided to try something different. The Valdaran had taken that choice away. Now they would face humanity at what humanity did best, and the galaxy would learn a new lesson. Never attack those who ask for peace, because they might be offering you the only mercy you will ever receive from them. The message from Soman reached Earth Defense Command at 0300 hours. Within minutes, alarms were sounding in military bases across 3 planets and 24 orbital stations. Within an hour, every government on Earth knew that human civilians had been murdered in space by an alien power demanding their surrender. The Galactic Council expected Earth to respond through proper diplomatic channels. They expected humans to file complaints, request mediation, perhaps ask for economic sanctions against the Valdaran. The Council had procedures for these situations, processes that took months or years to resolve conflicts between species. Ambassador Ginho stood before the Galactic Council 18 hours after the attack. He was a small man by human standards, gray-haired and soft-spoken. The Council representatives, beings from dozens of species, waited for him to request their assistance. The Valderan Collective has murdered 43 human civilians, Ginho said quietly. They destroyed a research vessel that posed no threat to anyone. They have demanded our surrender. Earth's response is simple. Humanity does not negotiate with murderers. We do. Not surrender to bullies. The Valderan will withdraw from human space immediately and submit their military commanders to trial for war crimes. They will face the consequences of their actions. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The Valderan representative, a massive creature with 4 arms and armored skin, laughed. The humans make threats. Your entire military could not defeat one Valderan battle group. Submit now, and we will allow most of your species to survive as servants. Ginho looked at the Valderan representative with an expression that made several council members uncomfortable. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something else, something cold and final. You have been warned, Ginho said. What happens next is your choice. He left the council chamber without requesting any assistance, without asking for mediation, without following any of the expected diplomatic protocols. On Earth, Admiral Bora stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching displays that showed military assets mobilizing across human space. She was 58 years old, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and the Titan conflict. She had hoped to never see another war. Third Fleet is ready to deploy within 12 hours, her tactical officer replied. Fifth Fleet needs another day to fully arm. The reserve fleets are being activated now. We are recalling all veterans from inactive status. How many ships can we field? At full mobilization, 237 warships, plus support vessels. But Admiral, the Valderan have over 1,000 ships in their main fleet alone. Bora smiled grimly. Numbers only matter if you know how to use them. The Valderan have been fighting species that surrender after a few defeats. They have never fought someone who fights back with everything they have. Begin deploying drone reconnaissance to all Valderan border systems. I want to know where every one of their ships is located. Across human space, military bases that had been on peacetime status shifted to war mode. On Mars, Commander Taiyang received his activation orders while visiting his sister's grave. She had been a botanist aboard the Horizon's Edge. He read the orders twice, then stood and saluted the marker bearing her name. They will pay for this, he promised quietly. Every single one of them will understand what they have done. Valderan sent a second fleet toward human territory, confident that their show of force would break human resistance. They chose Titan, a mining colony with a population of 8,000, as their next target. The base was lightly defended, with only a small security force and no military warships. Facility. Manager Hannah watched the Valderan ships approach on her scanners. She was 62 years old, a former combat pilot who had retired to civilian life 20 years earlier. The muscle memory of command came back instantly. All personnel, this is not a drill, she announced over the colony-wide communication system. Hostile alien forces are approaching. Begin evacuation procedures immediately. Priority 1, get everyone to the escape shuttles. Priority 2, dump all research data to the emergency beacons. Priority 3, prepare demolition charges on all military-grade equipment. Manager Hannah, one of her staff, said, The Valderan are hailing us. They demand surrender. Tell them nothing, Hannah replied, and get me a direct military channel to Earth Defense Command. The evacuation began with practiced efficiency. 1,000 people moving toward shuttle bays and escape pods. Children crying, parents comforting them, engineers shutting down reactors, scientists encrypting their research and sending it home. Hannah stayed at her post. Watching the Valderan fleet take up positions around Titan, she recorded everything. Their ship formations, their weapon signatures, their shield frequencies. She transmitted it all back to Earth on military channels the Valderan did not know existed. Manager, you need to evacuate now, her second-in-command urged. The last shuttle is about to leave. Go, Hannah told him. I am staying. Someone needs to record what happens here. Someone needs to make sure Earth Command gets every piece of data about these murderers. The man hesitated, then saluted and ran toward the shuttle bay. Hannah sat alone in the control center as the Valderan opened fire. She narrated what she saw into the recorder, her voice calm and professional. Valdaran heavy cruisers firing plasma weapons. Shield penetration after 4 shots. They are targeting residential sections first. Civilian casualties will be massive. East Dome has been breached. Atmosphere venting. I am transmitting shield frequency analysis now. The facility shook around her. Explosions tore through the mining complex. Hannah kept recording, kept transmitting, even as fire spread through her control room. Her last transmission was simple. They showed no mercy. Show them none. This is Manager Hannah, signing off. On Earth, the footage from Titan played on every screen. 8,000 civilians attacked without warning. Hundreds killed before they could evacuate. The Valdaran broadcast their own message along with the footage. This is what awaits all human colonies if Earth does not surrender. You have 5 days remaining. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages to Earth, begging humanity to accept mediation. Council Representative Kuhn, himself, a human serving in the diplomatic corps, delivered Earth's response. The Galactic Council offers mediation as if this is a dispute over territory or resources, Kuhn said. This is not a border conflict. This is not a trade disagreement. The Valdaran have committed acts of war against human civilians. They have murdered our people and demanded our surrender. Earth will not negotiate. Earth will not compromise. The Valdaran will face justice for their crimes, or they will face destruction. There is no third option. But the Valdaran are too strong, one council member protested. Your species will be annihilated. Please, accept some terms. Preserve your people. Kuhn looked at the assembled representatives. You do not understand humans. We are not other species. We do not calculate acceptable losses and surrender when the numbers look bad. We do not weigh the odds and choose survival over justice. The Valdaran killed our people. They laughed about it. They broadcast it as entertainment. They have made their choice. Now they will learn what humanity becomes when you take away our preference for peace. The Valdaran military command reviewed Earth's responses with amusement. The humans had not surrendered. They had not even tried to negotiate. Instead, they were mobilizing their small fleet and making angry speeches. Let them come, the Valdaran High Commander said. We will crush their fleet, occupy their homeworld, and sell the survivors as laborers. They are primitives playing at being warriors. We have faced and defeated 50 species more advanced than them. The Valdaran intelligence reports painted a clear picture. Humans were weak, slow, and technologically inferior. Their ships were smaller. Their weapons less powerful, their soldiers fragile compared to Valdaran warriors. On paper, it was no contest. But the reports failed to note certain details. They did not mention that human military doctrine was based on 10,000 years of continuous warfare against themselves. They did not mention that humans had developed 16 different ways to destroy a planet and had chosen not to use most of them. They did not mention that the human concept of acceptable casualties was very different from other species. The Valdaran had fought civilizations that surrendered after losing 10% of their forces. They had conquered species that valued individual life so highly that they could not bear significant losses. They had never faced an enemy that would sacrifice half their army to win a battle that treated desperate last stands as routine operations, that had historical heroes specifically remembered for dying rather than retreating. In the human military bases, veterans reported for duty. Old soldiers who had not worn uniforms in decades put them on again. Young recruits, barely out of training, prepared for their first real combat. They all knew the odds. They all knew the Valdaran outnumbered them. They came anyway. Commander Taiyang met with his officers aboard the warship, relentless. The Valdaran think we will fight like other species they have conquered. They think we will retreat when damaged, surrender when outnumbered, negotiate when threatened. We will show them what human warfare actually means. Yes, sir, one young officer asked. Can we actually win this? Taiyang thought of his sister, of the 43 civilians murdered in space, of the 8,000 attacked on Titan. Winning is not the only thing that matters. Sometimes you fight because the alternative is living as cowards. But yes, we will win, because the Valdaran have one fatal weakness. They have never fought anyone as crazy as we are. The human fleet prepared to deploy. 237 warships against 1,000 Valdaran vessels. The odds were terrible. The chances of victory slim. But humanity had faced long odds before and survived. They had fought impossible wars and somehow won. They had been counted out by their enemies more times than anyone could remember. The Valdoran. We're about to learn what happened when you corner a species that has spent its entire history fighting for survival against itself, against nature, against impossible odds. They were about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Valdoran Defense Fleet waited at the border. World of Kelter with supreme confidence. 300 ships in perfect formation, their shields glowing with power, their weapons charged and ready. The human fleet approaching them numbered only 87 vessels, and the Valdoran commanders smiled at the mathematics. They send less than a third of our numbers, Admiral Gorth said from his flagship. These humans are either brave or stupid. Perhaps both, his tactical officer replied. Our scouts report their ships are smaller than ours, with weaker shields. This will be over quickly. Commander Taiyang stood on the bridge of the Relentless, watching the Valdoran fleet on his displays. His ship was scarred from a dozen battles in humanity's past wars. Its hull patched and repaired so many times that barely any original plating remained. The crew called it lucky. Taiyang called it stubborn. All ships, this is Taiyang. You see what we face? They outnumber us. Their ships are bigger. Their weapons hit harder at range. He paused. None of that matters. We are not here to fight fair. We are here to make them pay for murdering our people. Every ship they lose today is one less that can threaten Earth. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. And remember, humans do not retreat. The human fleet accelerated to attack speed, charging directly toward the Valdoran formation. The Valdoran commanders watched with confusion. They are not dispersing, Gorth said. They are not using evasive maneuvers. They are just coming straight at us, sir. They are diverting all power from shields to engines. They are trying to close range as quickly as possible. Fools. Gorth laughed. All ships, open fire. Destroy them before they get close. The Valdoran fleet unleashed a devastating barrage. Energy beams and plasma missiles tore through space toward the human ships. The humans did not dodge. They did not try to avoid the incoming fire. They just kept accelerating forward, taking hit after hit on their armored hulls. The Valdoran had built their ships with powerful shields and long-range weapons because that was how civilized warfare worked. You kept your distance, wore down enemy shields, and destroyed them from a safe range. The humans had built their ships differently. Human warships had thick armor, redundant systems, and massive engines. They were designed to absorb tremendous damage and keep fighting. The Relentless took 17 direct hits in the first minute of battle. Its outer hull glowed red-hot. Armor plates cracked and shattered. But it kept coming. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, the damage control officer reported calmly. Sealing affected sections. All weapons still operational. Secondary reactor hit, another voice called out. Switching to backup power. No loss of function. Taiyang watched the range counter drop. All ships prepare close-range weapons. Boarding parties to ready stations 3.2.1. Now, the human fleet hit the Valdoran formation like a hammer. At close range, human weapons suddenly became devastatingly effective. Railguns designed to punch through armor. Missile pods that could overwhelm point defenses with sheer numbers. And most terrifying of all, boarding torpedoes. The Valdoran had never seen anything like it. Humans deliberately rammed their small boarding craft into Valdoran cruisers, cutting through the hull and deploying combat teams inside enemy ships. It was insane. It was reckless. It was effective. Fighter pilot Yunji led her squadron through the chaos of close combat. The Valdoran fighters were faster and more maneuverable. But Yongji and her fellow pilots flew with an aggression that shocked their enemies. They accepted damage that would make other pilots retreat. They took risks that seemed suicidal, says Yongji. I have 2 Valdoran fighters on my tail. I am at 40% hull integrity. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. Yuan, you ready? Ready, her wingmate replied. Yunji cut her engines and spun her fighter around, flying backward while her damaged ship continued forward on momentum. She fired directly at the Valderan fighters pursuing her, while G1 dove from above and caught them in a crossfire. Both enemy fighters exploded. Yunji, your ship is critical, the squadron leader called. Return to the carrier, Yanji replied. I still have weapons and engines. I am still in the fight. She spotted a damaged Valdoran cruiser trying to retreat and locked her remaining missiles on its engines. Target acquired. Firing. Aboard the Valderan flagship, Gorath watched his perfect formation collapse into chaos. The humans were everywhere, their smaller ships weaving between his cruisers, their boarding teams inside his vessels, their fighters hunting his command staff with what seemed like personal vendettas. All ships maintained formation. He ordered, "Do not break ranks," but his captains were panicking. They had trained for organized warfare, not this brutal close-quarters brawl. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Human fighters that were critically damaged still pressed their attacks. It was like fighting an enemy that did not understand when they were beaten. The boarding torpedo. Gorath's flagship with tremendous force. The shaped charge cut through 3 decks before the human marines poured into the ship. Sergeant Suki led her squad with brutal efficiency. The Valderan soldiers were larger and stronger than humans, but Suki and her team had trained specifically for this situation. They used the ship's corridors to their advantage, setting ambushes, using explosives to seal sections, and when necessary, engaging in close combat where human adaptability overcame Valderan. Strength Suki squad moved through the flagship like they owned it. They had studied Valderan ship layouts, knew where the critical systems were located, understood how to maximize their advantage. When Valderan soldiers came around corners, they found themselves facing weapons, traps, and humans who had spent centuries figuring out how to kill larger opponents. Engineering sections secured, Suki reported. Planting charges on their reactor. Recommend all human forces evacuate this vessel in 5 minutes. Acknowledged. Taiyang's voice came through her communicator. Good work, Sergeant. Get your people out. Gorath listened to the reports flooding his command center. Half his ships were damaged or destroyed. Human boarding teams had taken control of 3 cruisers. His fighters were being systematically eliminated by human pilots who seemed to feel no fear. And that was when he understood. The humans were not trying to win a clean battle. They were trying to destroy his entire fleet, regardless of the cost. All ships, retreat, Gorath ordered. Fall back to defensive positions. But the human fleet did not let them disengage. They pursued the retreating Valderan vessels, harrying them, attacking damaged ships, preventing any organized withdrawal. Every Valderan ship that tried to escape was hunted down. Every Valderan fighter that ran was chased. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Valderan defense fleet had been completely destroyed. 300 ships reduced to debris and burning wrecks. The human fleet had lost 34 vessels, with another 20 so damaged they needed to be towed back for repairs. By traditional calculations, both sides had taken heavy casualties, but the humans treated it as a victory. Because every Valderan ship was gone, the human survivors could still fight. Taiyang broadcast a message to the Valderan homeworld, using the captured communication systems from a destroyed cruiser. His face was covered in soot, and blood from a minor injury stained his uniform. Behind him, his crew worked to repair battle damage. This is Commander Taiyang of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have destroyed your forces at Kelter. This is your one warning. Withdraw all forces from human space, or this will come to every Valderan world. We do not want to exterminate your species. We only want justice for the humans you murdered. Give us that, and this war ends. Refuse, and we will keep coming. The Valderan leadership watched the transmission with shock and rage. No one had defeated a Valderan fleet in 300 years. No species had ever dared to threaten their homeworld. The idea that these small, fragile humans could do such things was unthinkable. Mobilize the entire armada, the Valderan High Commander ordered. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. We will crush these humans and erase them from the galaxy. They have humiliated us. They will pay with their extinction. The other Valderan leaders agreed. They could not let this defeat stand. They could not allow other species to see that the mighty Valderan collective had been beaten by primitives. They would gather their full strength, overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers, and prove that the Battle of Kelter was just a fluke. They did not understand that the humans had been counting on exactly this response. They did not realize that making the Valderan commit their entire armada was part of Earth's strategy, and they certainly did not grasp that the Battle of Kelter was not humanity showing their full strength. It was humanity testing Valderan tactics, learning how they fought and developing the counters that would destroy them. Aboard the Relentless, as repair crews worked to fix battle damage and medics treated the wounded, Taiyang looked at the casualty reports. 217 human deaths, hundreds more wounded, ships destroyed, families who would get notifications that their loved ones had died in space. He thought of his sister again. Of the 43 civilians murdered on the horizon's edge, of the hundreds killed on Titan, the price of this war kept growing, sir, his executive officer said quietly. Was it worth it? Taiyang looked at the tactical display showing the empty space where the Valderan fleet had been. Ask me when the war is over. 4. Now we have work to do. The Valderan will come with everything they have. We need to be ready. The message reached Earth within hours. Humanity had won its first major battle against the Valderan. The news spread across human space, bringing relief, pride, and grim determination. Everyone understood this was just the beginning. The Valderan collective was mobilizing for total war. Humanity had proven they could fight, but could they survive what was coming? Could they stand against the full might of an empire that had conquered dozens of worlds? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The humans would not surrender, would not retreat, and would not stop until either they won or the last human ship went down fighting. The Valderan had started this war thinking humans were weak prey. They were learning, far too late, that they had made a terrible mistake. 6 months into the war, the Valderan collective began to understand they were fighting something unprecedented. Every tactic they employed successfully once never worked again. Every weakness they exploited in human defenses was corrected within weeks. The humans adapted faster than should be possible. Intelligence Officer Daeho worked in a secure facility on Mars, analyzing every scrap of data from the war. His team intercepted Valderan communications, studied their tactics, examined wreckage from destroyed ships. Within hours of each battle, detailed reports went out to every human commander, explaining what the Valderan had tried and how to counter it. The Valderan attempted a pincer movement at Proxima Station, Daeho explained during a command briefing. They split their fleet, trying to attack from 2 directions simultaneously. Commander Ryong adapted by concentrating forces on one group, destroying it, then turning on the second. I am distributing this tactical pattern to all fleet commanders. Next time the Valderan try this, every human captain will know how to respond. Admiral Bora reviewed the reports with satisfaction. The Valderan fight the same war they have fought for 3 centuries. They cannot understand why their proven tactics fail against us. What they do not realize is that humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We have tried every tactic they know, and 1,000 more they have never imagined. The Valderan tried to attack human supply lines, believing they could starve the human fleet of resources. They discovered that engineer Yuna had designed mobile shipyards that could be relocated within hours. The massive orbital facilities could build new ships, repair damaged ones, and manufacture weapons, while constantly moving to avoid enemy detection. We lost the shipyard at Callisto, Yuna reported during a production meeting. But we had already evacuated 80% of the equipment. The replacement facility will be operational in 2 weeks. The Valderan destroyed an empty station and gained nothing. The Valderan tried biological weapons, releasing an engineered virus on a human agricultural colony. It was a war crime by any standard, and they expected it to force human surrender. Instead, humanity responded with economic warfare that collapsed supply chains across 3 Valderan systems. Dr. Minho, a virologist working with military intelligence, helped develop the countermeasures. The virus was designed for human biology, Minho explained to his team, but it is crude. We had a vaccine within 72 hours. Now we need to make sure the Valdaran understand we can respond to biological warfare without using it ourselves. I want every Valdaran supply depot in sectors 7 through 12 to experience mysterious equipment failures. No deaths, no permanent damage. Just enough to show them we can hurt them without crossing the lines they crossed. The Valdaran could not understand this restraint. They had used weapons designed to kill civilians, yet the humans responded by disrupting supply chains instead of retaliating in kind. It seemed weak to the Valdaran commanders, but their frontline soldiers were starting to understand something. Their leaders did not. The humans were choosing not to fight dirty, and that made them more terrifying, not less. The war ground on. The Valdaran faced something they had never encountered in 300 years of conquest, an enemy that would not break. Other species typically sued for peace after 10 or 15% casualties. They valued individual lives too highly to accept prolonged warfare. The humans just kept fighting. Commander Gaon, recently promoted after her predecessor died in battle, stood on the bridge of the destroyer Swift Justice and watched another Valdaran fleet approach. Her ship was damaged, with armor scarred by a dozen battles. Half her crew were replacements for those killed in previous engagements. The odds were 3-1 against them. All crew, this is the commander, she said calmly.
Out.
The Valdaran outnumber us again. They expect us to retreat.
Out.
Going to hit them so hard, they will remember the Swift Justice for the rest of their short lives. Engineering, give me everything the engines have. Weapons, prepare all forward batteries. All hands, this is what we trained for. Let us show these aliens what humans do when cornered. The Swift Justice charged into battle like its namesake, and the Valdaran could only watch in confusion as a damaged human destroyer attacked a fleet 3 times its size. Gaon's ship survived by moving constantly, never staying in one place long enough for Valdaran targeting systems to lock on properly. Always attacking, never defending. Fighter pilot Yemen became a symbol of human determination in ways no propaganda could match. His fighter was shot down over a Valdaranic moon called Kilos during a raid. His squadron watched him crash but could not land to retrieve him with enemy forces all around. Leave me, Yemen transmitted. Complete the mission. I will find my own way home. For 3 weeks, Yemen survived on that moon. He evaded Valdaran patrols, set up hidden camps, and lived off emergency rations. But he did not just hide. At night, he sabotaged Valdaran installations. He damaged sensors, planted explosives on fuel depots, and freed human prisoners from a detention facility. The Valdaran knew a lone human was somewhere on the moon, making their lives difficult. They sent hunting parties. Yamin evaded them. They set up sensor grids. He found the blind spots. They offered rewards for his capture. He responded by destroying their main communication relay. When a human rescue team finally reached Kilos 3 weeks later, they found Yemen had rescued 8 captive humans and was planning his next attack on a Valdaran command post. The footage of his rescue, showing a single pilot who had waged a one-man war on enemy territory, spread through human forces and struck fear into Valdaran soldiers. If one human can do so much damage, a Valdaran soldier was recorded saying, "What happens when they come in armies?" The Galactic Council watched the war with growing alarm. Other species began to reassess their understanding of humanity. Humans had seemed peaceful, scientific, interested in exploration and trade. Now those same humans were fighting a war that had no parallel in modern galactic history. Council Representative Kuhn addressed an emergency session. The Valdaran asked what humanity would do if threatened. They are receiving their answer. I have been asked by several council members why humanity does not accept a negotiated peace. The answer is simple. The Valdaran murdered our civilians and demanded our surrender. Till they face justice for their crimes, there is nothing to negotiate. But the casualties, one council member protested. Both sides have lost so many. Surely compromise is preferable to continued bloodshed. Kyung looked at the representative with an expression of infinite patience. You still do not understand humans. We measure the cost of war differently than you.
Yes.
We mourn our dead. Yes, we wish this had never happened, but we will not accept peace without justice simply because the alternative is difficult. The Valdarin must learn that attacking humanity has consequences. If we accept a compromise peace now, we teach every species in the galaxy that you can murder humans without facing real punishment. That is not a lesson we will teach. The Valdarin sent peace feelers through third-party intermediaries. Terms remained non-negotiable: complete withdrawal from human space, reparations for the dead, and war crimes tribunals for those who ordered attacks on civilians. The Valdarin leadership refused, unable to accept such humiliating terms. "We are the Valdarin Collective," their High Commander declared. "We do not surrender. We do not pay tribute to primitives. We will fight until the humans are extinct."
What
The Valdarin did not understand was that their refusal to accept reasonable terms was exactly what human military planners had anticipated. Admiral Bora reviewed the strategic assessments with her senior staff. The Valdarin cannot accept defeat without losing face among the other species they have conquered, she explained. Their entire power structure is based on military dominance. If they show weakness to us, every species they have subjugated will question their authority. Therefore, they will fight to the end. We must be prepared to give them that end. "Admiral," one of her officers asked, "are we truly prepared to destroy their entire civilization?" Bora considered the question carefully. "We are prepared to destroy their military and their government's ability to wage war. But I am also prepared to help rebuild their civilization afterward, once they accept peace. The goal is not genocide. It is justice and security for humanity. The Valdarin started this war. We will finish it. We will finish it as humans, not as monsters." The war continued. Humans died by the thousands. Valdarin died by the tens of thousands. Ships burned. Stations fell. Colonies were evacuated or defended to the last soldier. And through it all, humanity continued to adapt, to learn. To improve their tactics and their technology, the Valdarin began to realize they were not fighting a war of conquest. They were fighting for survival against an enemy that would not stop, would not compromise, and would not forgive. Every battle taught the humans something new. Every defeat made them stronger. Every casualty made them more determined. Commander Taiyang, now promoted to admiral, stood before his fleet and delivered orders for the next phase of the war. "We have fought the Valdarin to a standstill across a dozen systems. They expected us to break by now. They expected us to surrender or sue for peace. They do not understand that we are just getting started. We are preparing for the final offensive," he continued. The Valdarin homeworld. It will be the most difficult battle of this war. Many of us will not survive. But we will end this war on our terms, not theirs. We will show the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises, honors its dead, and protects its own. Prepare yourselves. The Valdarin asked for this war. We are going to deliver it to their doorstep. The fleet prepared to move. Across human space, families said goodbye to soldiers who might not return. Engineers worked around the clock to repair damaged ships and build new ones. Scientists developed new weapons and better defenses. The entire civilization mobilized for one final push. The Valdarin fortified their homeworld, bringing in every available ship, every soldier, every defense system. They prepared for humanity's assault, confident that their superior numbers and the advantage of defending their most heavily fortified system would be enough. They still had not learned the most important lesson: humanity does not fight fair, does not honor conventions of warfare their enemies expect, and does not stop until victory is absolute. The Valdarin were about to face the full fury of a species that had taken 6 months to study them, understand them, and develop the strategies that would break them. The final battle was coming, and only one side truly understood what that meant. The human fleet arrived at the Valdarin homeworld with a force that made the stars themselves seem to dim. 200 ships, every available vessel humanity could field, emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Behind them, support ships carried enough supplies for a months-long siege. This was not a raid. This was an invasion. Admiral Bora stood on the bridge of her flagship Indomitable, watching the tactical displays show the Valderan defensive positions. The planet was surrounded by orbital defense stations, minefields, weapons platforms, and 600 Valderan warships. It was the most heavily defended location in the Collective's territory. "Okay, open a channel to the Valderan government," Bora ordered. The Valderan High Commander appeared on the screen, his expression filled with contempt. "You dare come to our homeworld, humans. You will die here. Your fleet will be destroyed, and we will hunt down every last member of your species across the galaxy." Bora smiled coldly. "You murdered 43 human civilians and started this war. We offered you terms: withdraw from human space, face justice, pay reparations. You refused. Now we are here to collect what you owe us. Surrender your military forces and submit to war crimes tribunals. This is your last chance to end this war without your world being turned into a battlefield." The High Commander laughed. "We are the Valderan Collective. We do not surrender to primitives. We will crush your fleet and mount your skulls on Bora. Cut the transmission." They have made their choice. All ships, begin the operation. Remember your training. Remember your targets. And remember, we are here for their military, not their civilians. Precision strikes only. The human fleet moved with a coordination that shocked the Valderan defenders. Every captain knew their role. Every ship had specific targets. For 6 months, humanity had been planning this assault, studying Valderan defenses, developing tactics specifically designed for this moment. Captain Hayami commanded the Breakthrough Force, a group of 20 heavy cruisers whose job was to punch through the orbital defenses. Her ships were the newest in the fleet, built specifically for this battle. With armor designed to withstand concentrated fire and weapons calibrated to Valderan shield frequencies, "All ships, with me," Hayami ordered. "Formation Delta 7. Target the defense stations in Grid 4. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and do not stop until we are through." The Breakthrough Force charged into the defensive perimeter. Valderan weapons tore into them immediately. Shields failed. Armor melted. But the human ships kept coming, their AI-assisted targeting systems picking apart the defense stations with surgical precision. Within 20 minutes, Hayami's force had carved a hole in the Valderan defenses large enough for the main fleet to exploit. "Grid 4-2 is clear," Hayami reported, her voice steady, despite the damage her ship had taken. "Breakthrough complete. All ships in my group have taken heavy damage, but remain combat effective." "Well done, Captain," Bora replied. "Fall back for repairs." Second wave advanced through the breach. The Valderan fleet moved to close the gap, but they were fighting an enemy that had spent months learning how they operated. Admiral Taiyang led a force that hit the Valderan ships from an unexpected angle, forcing them to split their attention. Engineer Yuna's mobile repair ships kept damaged human vessels in the fight, patching holes and restoring systems even as the battle raged around them. The space around the Valderan homeworld became a chaos of combat. Human ships wove between Valderan cruisers, exploiting every weakness, targeting critical systems, and refusing to give their enemies time to reorganize. Fighter pilot Yunji, who had survived a dozen major battles, led her squadron through the defensive positions with the confidence of a veteran. "This is Yunji. I have visual on Valderan command carrier in Sector 7. It is coordinating their fleet movements, requesting permission to engage." "Permission granted," came the response. "But Yonji, that carrier has heavy fighter protection." "Understood. My squadron can handle it." She switched to her pilots. "Everyone remember the drill? We go in fast, ignore the fighters, and put everything we have into that carrier's communication arrays. We do not need to destroy it, just blind it. Ready?" Her squadron of 15 fighters dove toward the massive Valderan carrier. Enemy fighters swarmed to intercept them, but the humans had planned for this. Half of Youngji's pilots engaged the defenders, while the other half, including Youngji herself, pressed through to the carrier. "Firing," Youngji called out as her targeting computer locked onto the carrier's communication towers. Her missiles streaked across space and tore into the structure. Other pilots followed, their combined firepower, dreading the carrier's ability to coordinate the Valderan fleet. The battle raged for 18 hours. The Valdaran fought with desperation, knowing they were defending their homeworld. But desperation was not enough against an enemy that had spent 6 months preparing for this exact battle. Human commanders knew Valdaran tactics, had studied their responses, and had developed counters for everything the defenders tried. Boarding teams secured key orbital stations. Human ships systematically destroyed Valdaran weapons platforms. The defensive fleet was worn down, ship by ship, until the Valdaran commanders realized they were not going to win this battle. But humanity did not destroy the planet. They did not target civilian areas. They did not use weapons of mass destruction, even though they possessed them. Instead, they executed precision strikes on military installations, government facilities, and industrial centers that supported the war effort. Admiral Bora watched as the last Valdaran defensive positions fell. The cost had been heavy. 60 human ships destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. Thousands dead. Thousands more wounded. But the Valdaran military was broken, their defenses shattered, their homeworld exposed. "Open a channel to the planet," she ordered. "All frequencies. I want every Valdaran to hear this." When the channel opened, Bora spoke with a voice of iron. "People of the Valdaran Collective, this is Admiral Bora of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your military has been defeated. Your government ordered attacks on human civilians, and we have come to deliver justice. But we are not here to exterminate you. We are not here to enslave you. We are here to ensure you never threaten humanity again. Your military commanders will stand trial for war crimes. Your government will surrender authority over your military forces. You will pay reparations to the families of those you killed. In return, humanity will help rebuild what this war has destroyed. We will ensure you have food, medicine, and the resources needed to survive. We do not want your extinction. We want your understanding. Humanity will not tolerate attacks on our people." On the planet below, the Valdaran population listened in shock. They had been told humans were primitives, weak prey that would be easily conquered. Now those humans had defeated their entire military and occupied their system, but instead of the genocide they expected, they were being offered terms, rebuilding assistance, and a path forward. Young Valdaran officer Sora, who had survived 3 battles against human forces, listened to Bora's message from her damaged ship floating in orbit. She thought about everything she had seen in this war. The humans who fought with impossible determination. The pilots who pressed attacks despite critical damage. The soldiers who stormed Valdaran ships knowing they might not survive. She had expected monsters. Instead, she had found warriors with principles. The Valdaran High Command, hiding in a fortified bunker beneath their capital city, refused to surrender. But without military forces to enforce their authority, their orders meant nothing. Local Valdaran governors began accepting human terms, prioritizing the survival of their people over the pride of their leaders. Within 3 days, the war was effectively over. The Valdaran military had surrendered. War crimes tribunals began processing those responsible for ordering attacks on civilians. Human reconstruction teams landed on Valdaran worlds to help repair critical infrastructure damaged in the fighting, Commander. Taiyang oversaw the treaty negotiations with surprising fairness. He had lost his sister in the attack that started this war. He had every reason to hate the Valdaran, but he negotiated with professionalism and an understanding that peace had to be built on something other than humiliation. "The Valdaran made a terrible mistake," he told his staff. "They attacked us thinking we were weak. We have proven them wrong. But if we treat them like animals now, we only create the next war. Better to show them that humans can be fierce enemies, but fair victors." Ambassador Jinho returned to the Galactic Council to deliver humanity's final statement on the war. The council chamber was silent as he spoke. 6 months ago, the Valdaran Collective murdered 43 human civilians and demanded our surrender. They did this believing we were weak, primitive, inferior. Today, the Valdaran military has been defeated, their homeworld occupied, and their government dissolved. We did not want this war. We tried to avoid it. But when forced to fight, humanity fights to achieve total victory. Some of you feared we would commit genocide against the Valdarin. We have not. Some thought we would enslave them. We will not. Instead, we are helping rebuild their civilization under new leadership that understands peaceful coexistence. This is humanity's message to the galaxy. We prefer peace. We offer friendship, and we engage in trade and cultural exchange with joy. But if you attack us, if you murder our people and demand our submission, you will learn what happens when you mistake our mercy for weakness. The Valdarin are learning this lesson. I hope no other species needs to learn it the same way. The Galactic Council accepted Earth's statement without comment. Several species that had been considering aggressive expansion into human territory quietly canceled those plans. The Valdarin Collective was not some minor power. They had conquered 43 worlds, defeated 50 species, and ruled for 300 years. If humans could break them in 6 months, what could humans do to anyone else? Months later, Salman, the engineer who had survived the destruction of the Horizon's Edge, visited the memorial built for those who died in the war. Thousands of names were carved into the black stone, including her crewmates from that first attack. She placed flowers at the base of the memorial and stood in silence. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Sora, the young Valdoran officer, also approaching the memorial. Salman tensed, but Sora raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "I do not expect forgiveness," Sora said quietly. "I was part of the military that killed your people. But I wanted to come here to pay respects, to acknowledge what my people did, to remember that this war did not have to happen." Salman studied the Valdaran officer for a long moment. "You fought against us? 3 battles. I saw humans keep fighting when they should have been dead. I saw courage that I did not know existed. I saw what humanity becomes when you threaten them." Sora looked at the memorial. "My leaders told us you were primitives. They were wrong about everything. I am sorry for what was done to you." "Sorry does not bring them back," Salman said, but her voice was not harsh. "But it is a start. Your people made a terrible mistake. They looked at us and saw weakness. They did not see that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our ships. It is our refusal to accept defeat, our willingness to sacrifice for each other, and our commitment to justice even when it is difficult." They stood together in silence, a human and a Valdoran, both survivors of a war that should never have happened. Around them, other species passed by, taking in the memorial, reading the names, and learning the lesson. Humanity had proven they were the most deadly species the galaxy had encountered. Not because they were cruel or barbaric, but because they combined fierce determination with disciplined purpose. They could wage total war with devastating effectiveness while still maintaining the principles that defined them. The war was over. The Valdarin had learned their lesson at a terrible cost, and the galaxy had a new understanding. Humans were friends you wanted to have, and enemies you never wanted to make. Their offer of peace was genuine, but so was their promise of consequences for those who attacked them. The memorial stood as a reminder of both the cost of war and the price of underestimating humanity. Thousands had died, but in their sacrifice, they had ensured that no species would ever again look at humans and see easy prey. The galaxy had been warned. The Valdarin had paid the price for ignoring that warning. And humanity returned to their exploration and research, hoping for peace, but forever ready to defend themselves. If peace was denied, because that was what humans did, they hoped for the best, prepared for the worst, and never, ever gave up.